One time when I was about 9 years old, the Tive girls, who were twins, identical twins, asked me if I would tell them a story. Although I was reputed to be in the running with their older brother Michael, who was my age, as the leader of the class. Maybe I was 11. Couldn't have been more than sixth grade. I naturally disappointed them. I wasn't ready to tell the story. But it turns out that that neighborhood was. And although I read the Hardy Boys, nothing prepared me for the darkness of the mystery that was to envelop me. Still, not everything in the world has been dark. It's difficult, perhaps, being reminded of that so soon after being told that starving children of Gaza have stopped crying. A deadly sign, approaching the point of no return for an entire population and an entire generation of man. And I guess that was part of the story I was led to be told. Some of the cowpokes I hung out with in my 20s enjoyed hearing my stories of hitchhiking adventures, laughing with rock stars, if not laughing with them, at least enjoying their company. And there was, of course, an honest admiration for my readings. I chose to read people who had a lot of good judgment and were people of learning. So even though I didn't get to go to college because I was deaf for a long, long time, so I never had a career other than a library clerk, which was when I finally got one job in a general interest library where I was more suited than a medical library, only part-time, never living above the poverty line. I did do my readings, and certain things did make their impression on me, so I could quote a timely anecdote from Tolkien or Ayn Rand from time to time. But only a few people bothered with me because I'm so deaf. And of course, no one actually knows who was actually in on what happened. No one knows. You can't tell from the women of Gaza if they were in on what happened, although you would like to think they weren't. You couldn't tell from Ray, although he was certainly a very, very gifted friend who spent many years conversing with Jimmy, as he called me. In light of the tragic and deeply depraved condition visited upon the people of Gaza, I reflected on campfire stories, but the ones I was told by Jennifer Rubin were gory and unhappy sorts of campfire stories. I was largely raised by the Jewish community. Early chastisements with weird signifiers like King's Estate, where I was gassed as a little boy, forced to breathe potent, noxious industrial inhalants, industrial toxins, by men with bizarre names like Casper and Pitman, which is like Hitman and Pitbull, who threatened to kill me and battered me horribly. All of which Carnegie Mellon University lied about. You look at the way I started speaking up and snapping out of it after trying to get Peter Gabriel's help. It was during the anti-apartheid movement. John Seitz, a talented architect, built a shanty on the lawn of Carnegie Mellon University. And we traveled. Of course, there were one-night stands. It's traveled up through the chapters of black market slander and the pornography that Yoko Ono was after and the genocide. They were moving, they were hustling, which was known as AIDS. Nobody cares about that anymore, but Gail Burston is a hell of a name for the script that we found. It was obviously about AIDS. And the stories of Leslie Katz, about Leslie Katz, were obviously part of the guerrilla theater gaslighting. And that support for that attack is what people of Seattle mean by building momentum for Israel. Now they see what that means and they don't care. So I never got any help or warning for any of it. Didi is used by the Army because Fripp and Tav thought it would be funny to sabotage my prospects by terrorizing me into a bordello, makeshift bordello with a premature hottie who had her share of experiences before she deflowered me. But you know how overweight people are when Greta Thunberg gets a full head of steam. It's not right to take someone hostage to childhood. Exploitation. But the terror was meant to be real. It was meant to cut away my understanding of reality. If there was ever any meaning to corrupting the morals of a child, it would surely be giving a child a bottle of Mogan David 2020 in Southern Comfort, watching him puke out the window all day, which happened when I was about 13. But Pittsburgh called it a provincial norm and thought it was funny that they had destroyed the hopes of one of the class leaders in academics. I don't know why women wouldn't look at other women about what went on with me. Because when they stopped coming, I stopped. Period. They often came on to me in those days. And I was deaf. So I didn't have much sensory involvement other than having a girlfriend who wanted to be groped by me. Because I was pretty in those days. Now I'm horrible. I have seborrheic dermatitis, chronic eye infections. Seattle poisoned me in the mouth. I'm never going to be able to shake that. I hope I don't lose my teeth anytime soon. But they're thinking of putting me in adult assisted living where I won't even have a room of my own. I have to live for years if I pull through in a nursing situation with someone I'm sure I won't be able to relate to. We're trying to get home care so that doesn't happen. I don't mean to be expressing that I'm in a circumstance which is darker than Gaza. It's just that the same tormentors are responsible for what happened to me. There's no telling what they're capable of doing. It's horrible what they've done to me. Absolutely pitiless. And they call themselves a public school system. It really can be shocking. And they're dropping bombs on children. And they're making lewd innuendos about children. They forbid me to have children. Absolutely forbid it. So Rosa, who worked with Peter Gabriel and Donald Trump and Brian, don't fall for Yanis Fear Fakis. He puts out warnings about Donald Trump's going to lose his head about this or that. He's well established in the inside circle of Trumpington. And just as Zappa was. These are the wall of sound about the partnership of John Lennon and Ronald Reagan and the Hollywood magic of the so-called Casper the Friendly Joke performance. That's a Freudian slip, but when you look at the evidence, my project is starting to wind up. I mean, I do have a book that shows clearly the grounds for prosecuting Reagan. It's the killer of JFK, the person who played a very large and mean-spirited role in organizing the assassination. There's a book that shows that. It's not, they can say, oh, you gave your word. I don't really remember what I said to Hillary Reagan. At the time, I wanted to be clear that I was concerned about the indications and was going to follow up on them. But I believed surely he would be exonerated. That's not giving anybody a word to lie for them about the assassination of JFK. Of course, it was turned into that by Yanis Varoufakis. Who, they'd put on Supernova and Aaron Bush and Pope Carl's gibberish. And they had a roster of people who committed suicide by AIDS, suicide bombers, to show scholarship and steadfastness in their holy war. I don't think that's what public schools should have as their objective outcomes for gifted deaf students. The rock industry is just a horrible example of the planning behind the assassination of Martin Luther King. It's just a horrible example. They just ripped off it's like a scene in MASH where they opened the curtains to looking in Hot Lips, violating her privacy. It's like tearing off the suit and tie of the distinguished leaders of the 60s and telling them they must grovel naked before the burning cross. Same thing with JFK. My research people should be poring over it, but they're not. But it does exist. It is here. And I'm working on the second volume, which will be significantly finished in terms of closure that would allow a person to spend an hour going through it in a friendly and affirmative way and see what is meant by the four themes of the six international cinema cartels. The film project, semiotic research. As a person who was wounded by the American culture, I was preciously insinuated into the sentiments of the Holocaust survivor community, who I knew many families from. My brother is Jewish. And so the performance aspect of my fury against the torment brought on Gaza is nourished by the way I was taught to be protective of the Jewish people, because it's not really a matter of Jewish people, it's a matter of vulnerable and bereaved people. Now, Pitt had an army. They wore twin lightning bolts to Pitt News picnics. And working with Carnegie Mellon University, who also had an army, they aborted my child and made a sick statement about it. And depicted that as also sentiment of grounds for defending against murder, mass murder, as they see abortion. Nobody challenged that. The 60s were organized to make it seem normal to practice birth control. Somebody should have defended me. I'm deaf and have been battered very gravely. When I took a stand for Africa, my purpose was to work with anybody who came forward to me at Pitt News. And when nobody did, I made a stand by myself, which wasn't to make a land stake in history, although I was treated miserably for it by people who said I was rivaling the open microphone of the local gurus of the garage rock scene and so on. Sort of thing that made Ray unhappy with me because they came down on him when I pinched a nerve with them. But I did it because I believed in it, and I didn't want people, even like Raymond, coming between me in an attempt to gather forces for the internet world, for example, which I was talking about in those days. I had a conversation with Dr. Robert Glue, who had been to Africa and told me in Nigeria the medical books were waterlogged in a box on the back porch of a rustic old house in Nigeria. They burned valuable wood to keep warm. They lacked knowledge about things. I don't think he meant to be bigoted. He went there regularly. He may have. Stranger things have happened. I said, we have powerful computers like the Cray 6. We're starting to automate intelligence materials. Why don't we get ready to help Africa? Get access quickly. John Seitz, in fact, who built the shanty, went into the Peace Corps in New Guinea and sent me a picture of natives with laptop because he knew I would appreciate it. He knew what I was coming from. He used to talk to him about Buckminster Fuller. But Pitt, NAACP, and Cantu Repertoire Theater in Seattle had it configured that I was interfering with their secret purposes that they were using me for, as Dee Dee's brother Mark Mancini used to say, as a puppet. So for years I would carry around the trauma and density of the poison from the Mogen David and the nerve agent visited on me as a child. If there's any meaning to corruption, corrupting the motives of a child, it was in what they did, and yet they make a joke of it. The police do. Carnegie Mellon University Army make an absolute joke of the whole thing. When Zappa was saying fraudulently that he believed in freedom of speech, he was just setting up the situation that Carnegie Mellon pulled when Jaime Carbonell started extruding things from my traumatized subconscious mind, which he used his natural language laboratories to translate into Russian. They're Eno's friends. And Yoko Ono was, of course, stalking me. So you do have to look at these chapters who made the pornographic film that I have evidence exists, although I've never seen these fucking movies. I don't want to see these fucking movies. They had no right to do it. They impinged a persona and then played psychology games on guerrilla theater direction. Administrators just pretend they don't see what really happened.